if you can be in business with your wife and you have confidence that you guys can work together, it's 100% the best route you can possibly go. And I was like, wait, all I've ever heard is some doubt and some shade around like, oh, you might not want to mix business and, be in a marriage together. And he's like, no, undoubtedly the best businesses I know is when a husband and wife have alignment, they have unity, they have a clear vision that they're both chasing, and they're both vested, and they both sit in different seats. By the way, they sit in the seats that they're supposed to. I sit in the seat where my strengths are. She sits in the seat where her strengths are. If you can have clarity in that, it's the best way you can operate a business.
Can you take us to that conversation? I'd love to go. Sorry to interrupt. Can you take us to that conversation when you shared with him, please?
Yeah. So 50% of the people in my life were like, Kyle, that's an amazing decision. I'm so proud of you. I know you've been frustrated. I've been waiting for you to make a move, and it looks like this is going to be awesome for you. And the other 50% of my life were like, oh my gosh, is he stupid? Why is he leaving that? What is he thinking? This is dumb. This is, and when you're in that fragile state of like taking a risk like that, it's hard. The critics are hard. They're louder. And the support is needed, man. I just needed people to cheer for me. My mom was that. My mom was like, dude, you're going to do great at whatever you do. I know you. And my dad was the one, and I'll take you there. Like you said, I want to be vulnerable because I think people might have similar stories out there. It was Easter 2015. I had waited till the last minute to actually tell my dad what was going on, which was me becoming a real estate agent, getting my real estate license. I had already gotten it. And I had told him that weekend before Easter. And I think it came in the form of a text message that was like, yeah, this is official. But he had kind of heard from my mom, whatever. And we were at a family event for Easter. And what happened was the topic came up of Kyle's changing paths with what he's doing. And I remember being in the other room, and my dad decided to voice his opinion about that in a joking way, and essentially just made fun of what real estate agents are, one step above a car salesman. All these things in my head that I kind of was like holding me back, and they were kind of confirming some of these things I was scared of getting into sales, all this stuff, getting into the entrepreneurial world. Entrepreneurs don't make any money. Start your business, you can fail flat on your face, all these things. And he essentially, called me stupid in front of my aunt's uncle's family, cousins, right? I was in the other room, and I'm sitting there. I wasn't there to defend myself. Thankfully, I didn't jump into verbal defense, but I was boiling. I was super tough to my ego. I was already fragile in that. And I'm sitting here saying, F you, man. You're the one dude in my life that I need the most support from in this moment. And I just listened to you. I listened to what you actually had to say, and you didn't even say it to my face, And dude, fast forward to I drove home because it was a family event. It was a holiday. There was alcohol. There was drinking. Fun was being had. I drove the family home. I remember my dad sitting in the passenger seat. I'm driving. My mom's in the back seat. My brother's in the back seat. And Matt, to this day, the most painful part of it is that my mom and brother had to listen to me essentially tell my dad how I felt about that. And essentially I told my dad, I know you're not on board with this. And if you don't get on board with it, I'm never talking to you again. I don't respect you. It doesn't sound like you respect me. You're not the leader for me. You're not, this was this moment, Matt, that sometimes I've heard this is like the death to your father moment. Like this is where it's no longer father son. This is like, I need to go. And it was a crazy, it was a crazy moment. There was a lot of tears. There was a lot of anger. He didn't fight it. He just listened to it. And it was the worst things I've ever said to my dad, ever. Worst words I've ever said to anybody, and it was all just anger and defense, man. I was just broken up.
Yeah. Well, thanks for having the courage to share that, Kyle. And, I want to honor you for that. And I think you're sharing a story that a lot of us might be able to relate to. My story with my dad and being an entrepreneur is eerily similar to that. So I appreciate that you had the courage to share that. And now that was 2015 when you became a real estate agent. So I'd love to walk forward from post that conversation. Was there a moment when you started as a real estate agent up until now that you realized that this is my calling and this is what I'm meant to do? Take us to that time, if there was a moment when you consciously became aware that I love this and this is my calling.
Dude, the cool part was I got back to it. I had a chip on my shoulder now, Matt, as you can imagine. I had something to prove to myself. I had something to prove to him. That's a lot of motivation. And I used it. But I didn't know how the heck to do sales, man. I was coming from an engineer, but here's the thing. I always like to be around people. I had that going for me. I was more of an extroverted engineer as it was. And I went to my mentor at the time and I said, how do I sell a house? How do I sell? And he literally said, you never sell. You just go and all the relationships that you've let lay and that you've kind of not fed very well, you haven't watered those plants, go back, be a better friend, add value to them, check in with them, take them out for lunches, happy hours, coffees, and just do that all week long and be a really energetic connector for people and just go out into your community every day. And I said, so just go be a great friend to everybody? He's like, yep. I said, I can do that. And Matt, to answer your question, that was the moment when I started to re-engage with my community, my people. When I started to form community, I started to create community myself, and people were drawn and attracted to that. Dude, I was having the time of my life. That was a blast. People are the best part of everything you do in life, and they're also the hardest part of everything you do in life. You know what I mean?
You have the podcast, you have property management, you have real estate properties, and even hearing that your wife is a part of the organization. What's that like, working with your wife in side-by-side business? That's got to be interesting.
Yeah. Okay. So this is a whole nother podcast episode, but I do want to touch on this because it's super cool. And I really think I remember the advice that I got, Matt. And I had, it was a person that was like an implementer for what we call entrepreneurial operating system traction, the EOS. There's a book called Traction, if you don't know what that is. And he said, wait, your wife is familiar with real estate? I was like, yeah, she's actually an accountant right now. That's what she does, but she really knows a lot about real estate and she has interest. He said, if you can be in business with your wife and you have confidence that you guys can work together, it's 100% the best route you can possibly go. And I was like, wait, all I've ever heard is some doubt and some shade around like, oh, you might not want to mix business and, be in a marriage together. And he's like, no, undoubtedly the best businesses I know is when a husband and wife have alignment, they have unity, they have a clear vision that they're both chasing, and they're both vested, and they both sit in different seats, by the way. They sit in the seats that they're supposed to. I sit in the seat where my strengths are. She sits in the seat where her strengths are. If you can have clarity in that, it's the best way you can operate a business, he said. And I was like, well, shoot, Haley and I need to talk about this. And that was where there was a lot of similar themes for her at her accounting job, where she was looking around and she wasn't seeing a lot of the leaders that she wanted to become. And she wasn't seeing a lifestyle that she wanted when she had audit accountants that were FaceTiming their kids at 8:00 at night and wishing them good night in bed. And that she said, that's not the life I want to live. And so we said, well, do you want to stay? And it all came to a head around COVID. Her boss said, you need to come back to the office. COVID's over. And we said, and she was working from home and she loved it. And we said, Do you want to do that or do you not? And that was when we pivoted, man. And so that was 2021, and she's been in our world. She helps with our short-term rental portfolio, with furnishing properties and designing. She sells houses. She actually has a side business, baby quip, where actually it's like renting out baby equipment for people. Like, we use it when we go to Arizona, where we don't haul strollers in car seats and all these toys and books and everything. We just rent it there, and then so we actually have that franchise, little franchise in Fargo. She has a business around that. So